Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Finance podcast. Excited to have you both, Sarah, Catherine. Excellent having you here today. How are you?
I know I'm great because I'm joining. It's Sarah Biller, co-founder of Fintech Sandbox, co-founder of Mass Fintech Hub, but more importantly, a dear friend of Catherine's.
I'm
I
doing
love it. Catherine,
fantastic because I get to hang out with both of you and talk about one of my favorite topics, fintech.
I love it. I'm really excited to chat with both of you today. I would love just to quickly kind of just give me the 30-second version each. We'll kick it over to you, Catherine, and then just tell everyone a little bit about your background as well, title company. We're just going to kick things off by having both of you kind of share what first drew you into the world of fintech, and then we'll go into our conversation here today.
Well, thanks for the question. I started working in financial services technology almost about 20 years ago and actually had the opportunity to work with a fintech that was doing online banking at the time. And I always looked at it as utilizing the technology to eliminate customer issues and help facilitate what customers are trying to do. And I've just had the opportunity to work in customer experience and in digital experience for the breadth of my banking career. I work with Citizens Bank as well here in the Northeast.
I love it. Over to you, Sarah.
Yeah, Jared, thank you. I'm a little less linear than Catherine. I wove my way through multiple industry categories as an investor in early stage technologies, as the CFO of a life sciences company. We have a drug in the market, and finally found my true passion, which was financial services, just as the credit crisis was taking off. And there's nothing more important than a crisis to make you realize that you actually can innovate your way out of it, that gap that's opening. And so I started off as an entrepreneur in the capital market space, believe passionately in the use of technology around de-risking categories, bringing new products and services to market, and most importantly, driving efficiency. And so I've wove my way as an entrepreneur, as an industry executive. Again, I was at State Street Bank, and now here we are talking about fintech with you.
I love it. You two are doing something right here today too, because it's actually hurting. I don't know why when you're talking, like I'm really excited to just like ask what I want to say next, and I can't stop smiling, and it's actually hurting my face today. So, I'm going to frown a lot after this episode, but staying with you, Sarah, and then we're going to kick it back over to Catherine, and then Catherine, I have another question for you. We'll kind of do sometimes the 1-2-2 type structure. Digital banking is clearly a hot topic. Why is it so critical today for banks to have a top tier digital experience?
Yeah, I know Catherine will be much more profound in this answer, but as an investor and a director in a community bank, we're with intentionality, it's Thread Bank, and we've with intentionality digitized the core. Because I think what we're seeing is a generational shift, at least in the work we're doing, where banking, to be a partner to its customers, has to recognize that Main Street is in the digital world. And I think the adoption of technology enables us to address customers where they are with what they need, whenever they need it, but also categorically manage against the aperture of risk that's been opened up by digitalization. But Catherine, I bet you have a better answer for me, for Jared, than I do.
Um, well, digital banking really goes back to the heart of what customers' jobs to be done are. What are customers trying to do, right? And currently, if you look at society today, just getting really based down to the human being, they are flooded by information. There is cognitive overload. And in the end of the day, they need some simplicity and ease. And digital banking comes right into that moment for a customer to make the ease of managing their finances. Customers want to see their money, they want to move their money, and they want to protect their money. And that's the bottom line. And digital banking has to deliver that for customers. They may need more money based on what they see. They may need some other help, but that is a ease and a satisfaction, and it is something that every single person has to be able to do when it comes to banking.
I might add, Jared, we've been working against this thesis with our founders, with our startups, that the future of financial services is exactly what Catherine said. I'll put it in a pithy statement: less is more. It's less friction in their experience. It's obviously contactless. In some ways it's increasingly permissionless. I think what we're seeing is the application of technology, Catherine, in the innovation cycle is exactly what you just said. Customers want to do more with less.
I like it. I'm gonna kick it back over to you, Catherine, so we kind of do that, 1-2 format. What do you think makes a successful partnership between a large bank and a nimble fintech startup? Are there any common traits or pitfalls that you notice?
What makes a really good partnership is an openness and a willingness to collaborate. And when I look at what the Mass FinTech Hub has created and what Sarah and the team there have been able to bring to bear of this collaborative ecosystem of academics, fintechs, industry, banks, financial services, insurance companies, and creating this ecosystem where we can all feed off of each other and utilize that openness to learn and engage. That is so critical because the brilliance that fintechs bring to a financial institution like us, they're exploring in spaces that might be harder for us to do. They're touching some new technologies that maybe we don't have the right infrastructure to plug in just yet, or it's in a sandbox somewhere, we're experimenting with it, but it's not quite ready for scale. And fintechs really bring that exploration opportunity. So it's an openness on both sides to be able to explore and work through and solve problems.
Anything you want to add, Sarah? I love that, Catherine, by the way.
I do too, obviously, because I think one thing that we're seeing is the patience of the incumbents to actually work with the entrepreneurs to help them develop. And Jared, one of the other things we always want our founders to come to industry partners like Catherine with is a sense of respect for the regulatory environment where they find themselves operating and knowing how to mitigate fraud. I mean, our entrepreneurs, they move fast, but this is not a world where you can necessarily break things. And so I think that's sort of the third leg of the stool, to Catherine, what you mentioned.
People are very sensitive about their money.
As they should be, right? As they should
Exactly.
be. Yeah. Sarah, I'm going to go over to you and then back to Catherine. Do you think banks that aren't leaning into these type of partnerships and relationships are at risk of being left behind?
Jared, you hate to actually think about that because banking, right? It's a 3,000-year-old industry. It has been critical since day one. Catherine mentioned people are sensitive about their money. So are small businesses, and they're the anchor of the community. But the definition of community has changed, and it changed the minute we put banking in our hands with our smartphones, right? And so I do think that institutions that aren't contemplating the application of technology, not just for customer acquisition, but customer retention. If you're not doing that, you're in trouble. And I think, of course, the other side is, as we might dive into a little bit too, is just the risk environment is so great. The weight of compliance requirements is so profound. Technology eases that burden. So I think there's two, forcing mechanisms today. They're important for the banking community to recognize, as Catherine has, the principal importance of partnership.
It's kind of. Oh, sorry, Catherine. Did you want to add something?
No, I think, technology also helps us solve the friction, right? There's some tremendous Gen AI opportunities, for example, that are helping us think about the friction points that are impacting our customers and helping us analyzing tremendous amounts of insights and information in such a rapid way that allows us to respond faster. And then there are fintechs that are working in spaces that could fit some of those niche areas for those companies. And it isn't just consumers, right? As Sarah mentioned, it's the commercial clients, it's those small business entities that need open banking type opportunities that connect into softwares that they live and breathe and leverage on a day-to-day basis, like their accounting platforms, that the ease of connectivity to their financial instruments really helps make their jobs easier and that the jobs they're trying to do much more streamlined. And there's some really exciting stuff happening in the fintech space to support those areas of needs.
It's so interesting when you think about this banking space in general, because I can't think of too many spaces that have to be cognizant when they're creating an online experience or an app that has to take into account almost every single age group. I've been thinking about that more and more. Like, if you were creating this new app for some, like, okay, it's for a new food delivery app, you kind of know your age range is okay, this is who we're building for. Banking has to say, like, we're literally doing everything from like their first bank account to their last bank account, right? it's kind of interesting. So I would love both of your thoughts on this. I know, like, I'm not saying like you guys are, fully involved in the UI and the UX that's happening on these platforms, but just from your both of your point of views, talk about why that's such a unique challenge and how I guess banks and fintechs need to approach that.
I actually built the user experience team and design practice here at Citizens. So I'm very passionate about this exact space. And one of the things when you think about the broad different users that you highlighted and mentioned, there's also a whole population of people that need accessibility that are in our user base. And sometimes something temporarily happens where your accessibility is just temporarily impacted, and how we deliver those digital services and other solution opportunities for you, that we have good lighting and ramps for the branch access, right? That we deliver on that accessibility need for all of our client base. So not only is it an age group population, but you got to think about sight impairment, hearing impairment, other needs that may impact how you use and understand the solutions. So going back to one of Sarah's points earlier about ease and simplicity is really important. It helps you hit the targets for all of those types of users.
Catherine, you just touched on something, and Jared, this probably has occurred to you given your amazing conversations with others, but I just think that we are also critically in a place where, as a banking community, we need to move past being reactionary to being almost predictive and forward leaning. And I think for the technology, the intersection of data, the digitizing of the core begins to enable the banks to be anticipatory at the user level. We have talked about personalization in banking for a long time. We've never been in a place where we can fully realize it, I think, until this moment. And I'm excited, just as Catherine thinks about someone who may be visually impaired, needing a ramp, and anticipating how they enter the front door of the bank. That same discipline, that same vision and knowledge needs to be in the digital world.
I'm glad you just mentioned that because this was something I wanted to ask both of you coming up. You talked about what excites you about the future. Well, what's the next big opportunity you see for banks and fintechs to really continue to level up that customer experience?
There's so many. There's a couple of different. I think where there's a really interesting precipice that's going to be a great opportunity, I believe, for fintechs, is how our experience and engagement with generative AI. There's been a lot of talk about it, probably a little bit of hype as well. But how does that change the user interface for customers' expectations and how they engage and interact with us? Because I think within that spot, as it's more adopted, as patterns change and UI patterns change of engagement, that's going to change a lot of the infrastructure, and some of the technology we've stood up now will need to be augmented to support that. And there's a lot of thought going into how do we make this technology flexible so that we can respond to those changing customer expectations going forward. So I think there's some real sweet spots there to help companies leverage the data, analyze it, and then respond in those expectation changing ways.
It's very powerful, right? The future is so powerful. I also think that banking in the future will be a tool of strategic advantage to small businesses, small, medium-sized businesses. I think we have the capabilities today to embed banking in different industry categories that allows them to better serve their employees, lets them know with sort of certainty when those employees need help or wealth. And I think it's an important moment for the banking sector to recognize that they actually have a two-sided marketplace. They're just not in a one-to-one relationship with their small business owner or their, my dad. They're actually in a relationship with whoever those people employ, no matter what their age is or who they interact. And again, I just go back to Jared, we're at this really discontinuous moment in banking. I don't think we've ever seen it. And it is so super exciting and to do a lot of good with what we have in our hands.
Yeah, it's an interesting time too because with really the just explosive growth of generative AI, it's going to change, like you were saying, interfaces. It's going to change how we interact. And we're still, obviously, everyone's still figuring that out, and there will be a lot of tests that need to still happen. But I do feel bullish that like anything that maybe took us a little bit longer in the past to implement, like especially within these fintechs and banks, will go a little bit faster, right? Is that something that you both feel as well, just because of what this technology will allow us to do?
I definitely do. Catherine, I don't want to speak for you, but
No, go ahead.
one part of my world is a data world, right? And we have more data on individuals and institutions than we've ever had before in banking. And so, yeah, I mean, Jared, I think you're spot on. But Catherine, I'm interested in your
Yeah.
thoughts. Yeah.
Being able to harness all that data and utilize it in a meaningful way, I think there's some real opportunities there within fintech innovation to help us do that faster and better. The pressure to get personalized and get personalized fast is really key. And we have so much data across the organization on things that are going on with clients, with our businesses, with our consumer customers, with our commercial clients and with the overlaps between those, we also have a lot of employee and colleague data. When you think about the ties between colleague experience and how that delivers your customer experience, there's ways to sort of integrate this data to then make sure we're delivering the right way for the clients in a relevant manner within the technology services that we deploy and how they may choose to interact with us in another space, but having that awareness of what they did in those technology spaces and bring that into offline experiences as well.
I love it. I've really enjoyed this conversation with both of you today. I hope we can have another one real soon, and would love to have both of you kind of be on the correspondence bench whenever we need an expert to come in and teach us a few things. So thank you both so much.
Jared, thank you. Catherine, great to spend time with you.
Great. Have a wonderful afternoon.